Hello guys, today we'll go over two things. One, a grass cutting script, and the second, a rally point system similar to Squad and Project Reality. So let's jump into it. And in the first part of the video, I'm going to show you what the scripts do. In the second part, we'll go over the details of how these things actually work and show you all the files and all the scripting so you can implement it in your own missions. Okay, assume I'm in a mission. I want to snipe to Ajay. Okay, so I'm coming down here. I go prone. Oh no, I can't see. Well, of course I can go over the grass this way. It's going to go down. It's going to come up in a minute, right? What if I want to get rid of all the grass here? Now I have an option of cutting grass. So once the grass is cut, I should be able to go back and snipe without any issues, right? There are of course issues. As you can see, this has its own advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, yes, I have clear line of sight. Disadvantages, the enemy can see you much better too. Okay, so that is the grass cutting script. The other system and the main system that I'll be going over today is the rally point system. Similar to Squad and Project Reality, you need two people next to you to place down these rally points. So this is Squad 1's rally point, the flag, and that is Squad 2's rally point. And this here is an inventory item, but this is also the platoon level rally point. So the way this thing works is you need a building, which is an HQ building over there, from where you can teleport yourselves to the platoon level rally point. And from the platoon level rally point, you will be taken to your corresponding squad level rally point depending on which squad you are. Like this object, this person that I'm controlling right now belongs to team 1. So if I go over here, scroll down and do move to squad rally point, it should place me on my left. And that is the first squad's rally point, which is right over there. Right? Now, I don't need to be the team leader to do this. I can do this as any of the members. Now, what if I am a member of the team 2, right? Do I move to the same rally point that I went to before? Answer is obviously no. I will move to my right, which is the team 2's rally point, right? So move to squad rally point. Well, I'm on the right. So this is squad specific. So no matter which squad you are in, it will move you to your squad's rally point and not anyone's rally point. Okay. How do I deploy these rally points? Well, you need to be a group leader to deploy the rally points. Let me go back to my group leader position. Okay. So in Arma, the AI always keep moving with you. So this is actually quite useful to place down this rally point. I'll show you why in a bit. Let me tell my AI to stop. So they are not going to follow me. And let me go a little further away. So about 20 or so meters away from them. Now if I try to deploy my squad level rally point, oh, it tells me I need more allies to deploy the rally point, which is what it should. I need 2 more allies next to me to deploy the rally point. Let me come back to about 15 meters from my friendlies, and now I can deploy the rally point. So if I have 2 friendlies next to me within 15 meters of me, I should be able to deploy the rally point. Right? So the rally point will be placed 3 meters in front of me, and in this case it's a flag, so it placed it right there. Right? It has some little bugs, like it's floating up in the air and not on the ground and so on. But usually we don't use flags. You normally end up using something like backpacks and stuff like that from Cup, so they actually fall to the ground pretty easily. Okay, so now we have this. Now what is the role of the officer here? So let me go back to the officer. Okay, notice I have a deploy platoon level rally points on my add action. The same thing applies to the officer. When I'm far away from units, I will not be able to deploy the platoon level rally point. It will give me the same thing, need allies nearby to deploy. Okay, so let's go back up here. Okay, so I have 2 allies here pretty close to me. What can I deploy my platoon level rally point here? Answer is yes. That's how the animation looks like. And you'll notice that inventory boxes over there are going to teleport over right in front of me, because that's the platoon level rally point, right? So now I have deployed the platoon level rally point, and notice I do not have an option to move to squad level rally point. The reason is the way we play it. The platoon level player usually commands the squads, so he is usually slightly behind the squads. So the squads are the ones who need to move up to, say, a building or to a city to defend, whereas the platoon leader will be like, I don't know, 100, 200 meters away, looking at what's going on, giving orders out. So this system works. Okay, how does this work if I respawn? Say I died and I respawn, right? And I don't really need to have multiple respawn points or a mobile HQ or something like that. With this system, all I need to do is find my base, which is, let's assume these two buildings are my base. So I can travel from this green building to my platoon level rally point. And that's an option I have on this HQ building. You can choose whichever building to be there. So now I am at the platoon level rally point, right? Now from the platoon level rally point, I should be able to move to my squad level rally point if I have a squad. In this case, I don't, right? So let me switch back to, say, Rifleman 2 or whatever. Okay, imagine Rifleman 2 just died, he respawned, he came back to the platoon level rally point. And then he talks to his commander and says, hey, do you need anything? And the commander says, bring me some GL rounds maybe. So he picks up some GL rounds and then he says, okay, coming to your pause, moves to the squad level rally point, then goes to the platoon leader and gives him whatever, the squad leader, and gives him whatever the squad leader wants, right? So having the platoon level rally point as an inventory item actually helps players to come and bring stuff over and take it over to the squad. It's like a resupply point, right? And even if no one is dead and you want ammo or something and you want to send a runner back, the runner only runs one direction here and then just uses the move to squad rally point feature to move back to your squad, right? So it saves some time. Okay, now the other feature you must have noticed by now is the retreat feature on this platoon level rally point. This does not exist on the flags, right? The retreat feature is present only on the platoon level rally point. Now when I hit the retreat button, what it's going to do is move me to the medical building over there and heal me completely if I am not healed. Now when do you want to use the retreat function? Well, a lot of enemies coming, we are overwhelmed, we are going to retreat. I'm going to come here, hit the retreat button. It's going to take me to the medical building. I'm wounded, I'm the last person alive, I want to regroup and restart the initiative. We can do that, right? So when I hit the retreat button, the screen is going to go black. It's going to show retreating and the countdown timer at the bottom. I gave 10 seconds. You can choose your timing as you like. And I have absolutely no control of my character, mouse and keyboard, right? The character is right now in the medical building. And once he's in here, he has full control over his thing, right? So you can move back, run back to the fight by using this, move to the platoon level rally point, or if the platoon commander himself retreats, then he can deploy the rally point somewhere else, like you insert again, and so on and so forth. So this is how the script basically works. You can also add stuff like, heal yourself or something to the buildings. Now, in the next part of the video, as we proceed, I'm going to go over the details of how each of these scripts work and what the files are and how you can implement it in your own games. Welcome to part 2. In the description down below, I'll place down the time where each part starts so that if you want to skip to a particular part, you'll be able to do that. So in this particular part, we'll look at the progress bar and see how the progress bar works. Now, this progress bar script was not written by me. It is written by Haley G. I found this in a forum about a year or so ago. I'm not able to find the link again when I do a Google search, but I'm pretty sure you can find it. If you do, place it in the comments down below so everyone can look at the actual script. So let's look at the one that I have modified slightly. So here is the progress bar folder that I placed all my functions and stuff into. So in the folder you will find two files, defines.hpp. This file is required for any kind of dialogues that you use. It just calls them, so keep them, don't delete this one. Functions.hpp for file is actually just calling this functions folder and telling me to go look at this class of progress bar in there, right? So this helps in making it neat. When I have multiple different functions, it just keeps track of them all in one place, so I don't have to waste a lot of file space right here when I can keep them neatly contained in folders. Okay, so this progress bar script is what Haley G wrote. I made some edits to it, basically just changing how it looks like, and stuff like transparency and so on. By default, this basically calls up this animation, which is the medic healing someone animation, but you can change it to whatever you want to right over here, right? And the way you're going to use the script is here in the example. So remember this, because I'll be using this in all my add actions in the future. I'll show it to you when we get there. So this is how a progress bar script looks like, right? The 3 files in there. That's all you really need. Now in the description.ext, you will have to add certain things. So it says here needed for progress bar, needed for progress bar. The stuff within this is where you can clearly change the color, the bar frame, how the transparency looks, how the texture looks, what you want to add into it, not right here, right? So this is where you can change the stuff that you want to change. But by now it just looks fine, so I didn't change a whole lot. Okay, so just jump back into the editor and have a look. So each of these units have an init line. So the init line is where you want to place down an add action. So in this case, I'm adding an add action to this unit, and it says do nothing add action, right? So it's going to do nothing for 10 seconds, and the time it's going to take is 10 seconds to show the animation. And what does it show? It shows the progress bar and the animation for 10 seconds, right? This is the function it's going to call. So let's have a look at how it looks like. So here I have an add action. It says do nothing. So I'm going to go to third person so you can see the animation better, and I'm doing nothing for 10 seconds. So basically he just does that, the progress bar fills up, and absolutely nothing happens in that 10 seconds, right? And at the end it'll give a hint saying action completed, and that's it. That's how the progress bar system works, right? So here's a little bit of a bonus thing. I was messing around with fog for a game that is coming up, by which you can add some fogs into this stuff like that, right? Anyway, so that's a little bonus thing. That's the end of part 2, and now we'll move on to the next part where we go over the grass cutting script. Welcome to part 3. Here we'll go over the grass cutting script. So let's have a look at the folder. As you can see, there are only 2 extra additions from the previous part, which was the grass cutter and the init player local.sqf. This is not required, but I like to keep the init player local.sqf because this way I can add the grass cutting action to every single player that comes into the game at any time, and when they respawn, the same grass cutting script is added back into them again, right? What does the grass cutting.sqf do? So it's inside the grass cutter folder for neatness purposes. So the grass cutter basically adds an add action to the player, which is like he's cutting grass. He takes 5 seconds to do this action, right? This is where the progress bar is spawned in. After 5 seconds, an object called cutter is created. The cutter object is basically a clutter cutter. That's a tongue twister. Anyway, so this object is created somewhere on the map. I chose 000, the origin point. And after the cutter is created, you move it to the position of the player, right? So set pause, get pause player. There's a reason why we had to do it this way. Initially what I had was you create the vehicle at the player position. Now the problem with the clutter cutter is that it has a parent object, so it does not spawn exactly where you want it to spawn, but somewhere around it, so it's not really precise. If you want the player to be centered on where you cut the grass, you have to create the object first and then move it to the player's position. This works best. And then it sleeps for 5 seconds and then deletes the cutter. Don't worry, the grass is still cut after that. And this part here at the very end is a thing that I feel is important, but many people don't. It's the condition statement. In this condition, all it's telling you is if the person or the player is also the person initiating the call, then this add action should be visible. Which means if I'm looking at a second player, I do not get the add action. Or I look at a dead body, I don't get the add action, right? To avoid that, this is why we have this written down here. Okay, so that's the basic idea of how the script works. Of course, I'm waiting until the player is actually present before you do this. Okay, now let's go back to the game and have a look at how it actually works. You have seen this before in the first part, but do nothing is from the previous one, so I don't need that. I need to cut grass. Okay, I'm going to cut grass, and the grass should be cut centered around me. So I should be the center of the circle, and then you have a grass cut around me, right? Usually it's about 5 meter radius all around you. It should be cut. Okay, so that's how the grass cutting works. Now there is an issue that happens. The issue is, suppose I cut grass here and I want to cut grass again here, like overlapping circles. You will notice something, that there is a chance the grass that I cut before is going to grow back. As you could see, it actually grew back, right? But it's not completely covered wherever it was. That's just a thing that happens in Arma. So if I want to avoid that, say I have a sniper team and there are two of them sniping at the same time, both of us will have to initiate the grass cutting within 5 seconds of each other. So in that sense, I create two of the vehicles and delete both of them without interfering with each other. So you'll have grass cut around you, right? Instead of having one person cut grass and then suddenly grass regrowing on him when someone else cuts grass somewhere. Now this only happens if you're cutting grass very close to the other object. Now if I go far away, let's say somewhere here, and I cut grass here, this cutting of grass is not going to affect the grass that has been cut over there. As you see, that cut grass remained the same and the grass here got cut. So this does not affect if you're far away, but if you're very close to each other or you have overlapping areas in which you're cutting grass, then the grass will grow back. So this is something you may have to keep track of, right? So this is the end of part 3, the grass cutting tutorial. The next part is going to be part 4, where we go over the integrated detailed rally point system. Welcome to part 4 of the tutorial. So in this part, we'll go over the rally point system in complete detail. There are certain things you should not change in this for this entire system to work. The first thing is the name of the squad leader. As you can see there, it is WSL1, and the name of this squad leader is WSL2. It is West Side Squad Leader 2, right? Don't change the name of the squad leaders. Officer's name doesn't matter. The platoon rally point has a name of RP_West. Make sure you keep it as RP_West. That is rally point of the western side. The other thing that you should not change name of is the medical building, which I have called as WMed. Now this is only if you are using the retreat system. If you're not, then it doesn't matter. But WMED is West Medical, right? The main building doesn't need a name. You can change the name if you want to. I just like to give it a name so I know which building is the main building. The flags or the squad rally points will have their own specific names. W Squad RP2 stands for West Squad Rally Point 2, and this one is West Squad Rally Point 1. And you should not change the names, because when you're trying to teleport from the rally point west to the squad level rally point, the name is what is looked for, right? So don't change the variable name of these objects. Okay, now let's start one by one and start from the platoon leader. Okay, so the platoon leader is the one who can deploy the rally point. So in his attributes, you'll see I'm executing a script called platoon rally point.sqf. And this is also executed again with the respawn handler, so that when he dies, he can still have the same thing executed again, right? So he's the only one who can execute this file, the platoon rally point. Make sure this is in the init line of the officer. In the squad leaders init lines, they too have a similar thing, but they have their squad specific ones. So in this case, it will be W squad RP1 and then W squad RP2 for the second one, right? If you want to add even more, you can just make new files, modify them, and write down W squad RP3 or R squad RP2 for some R faction, or you can say E squad RP2 for the East faction, or something like that, depending on your choice, right? And we'll go over the details of it in a bit. The other thing you want to keep in mind is this is just a heal yourself script. If you don't want to have it, it's up to you. It's perfectly fine, right? But the name is important. Okay, the add action on this main building is the add action that is calling the teleport.sqf, and that is the file that helps you teleport from one given point to another given point. So the way you use it is you do an add action, say move to platoon rally point or whatever you want to write here. This is the text that is displayed, and then the file is teleport.sqf file. And where does it teleport you to? It teleports you to the RP underscore west. And this is the reason why I said the name of the platoon level rally point should not be changed. Okay, so the name of this object should be RP underscore west. Now in the conditions field here, you must have noticed that the player has to be of the west side for this add action to show up. So if I place down, say, a civilian unit somewhere here, he will not see the add actions on these buildings at all. The only people who can see the add actions on these buildings are people of the same side. The same condition field can be used to make sure that you go to your corresponding squad rally points. Now let me open up this one's attributes. This is a little more complicated, but it's the same thing over and over again. So the retreat function is basically a teleport with certain timers and heals, which I'll show you in a bit. The second thing is the move to squad rally point. This is where you want to start looking at it. So in the conditions field here again, I have group ID of the person who is doing it. So the player's group ID should match the group ID of WSL1. Then this move to rally point is add action is available to him. Now if he belongs to rally point squad 2, then the next one is available to him. So if the group ID of him is squad leader 2, then the player is going to go to squad leader 2's rally point and not 1's rally point. And that is why the init of this should not be removed. Okay, now that you know how, where and what init to place on the players and the objects around here, let's go into the actual scripts and see what each one of them does. Okay, the extra stuff that I've added in here is this folder called the rally points, right? There's nothing else that has been added. Now in the rally point, you will notice that we have these 5 files. So platoon RP is the file that this officer initiates, right? So inside this, you'll notice that underscore unit select 0 basically says it is the player who is getting the add action. And make sure you use this format, otherwise every single player is going to have the add action, and you don't want it for every single player. You want it only for that specific player, right? So using this makes life easy. Notice I've also put down an extra security feature making sure that the side of the player is of the western side, and only then can he see this deploy rally point option, right? I can have separate ones here, like if player is east, if player is guerrilla faction or independent faction, and so on. Then you can actually have separate rally points for each and every one of them. So inside the add action, now this is where it gets tricky. I do the same thing. This is basically giving the script like, okay, deploy platoon rally point. This option is always present, and when you hit it, it will check for certain things. It will check if the number of player or entities around you within 15 meters is greater than 2, then it gives you the option of deploying the rally point with a 10-second delay, which is what this is, 10. You can change this to 40, 50, 60, whatever time your group wants specifically. And it will set pause of the rally point west in 3 meters in front of the player. That's what this does. Now, what if you don't have 2 people next to you? Well, then the else statement is initiated, which is a hint. It says, need more allies nearby to deploy rally point. This is the exact same structure that is used even in the squad rally points, if you notice. The only difference being that we are not deploying the squad rally point, we're not deploying the platoon level rally point, but deploying the squad level rally point, which is exact same structure. Okay, all these scripts and files will be in the description down below, so you don't have to worry about it. You can just download it and have a look at it. Now let's look at the teleport script. Now, how do you use the teleport script? Well, this is how you use it. You write down whatever text you want, like, okay, teleport to HQ building, teleport to medical building, something, and then call the teleport.sqf, which is this file right here, and give the name of the object. This is why I said do not change the name of certain objects, because you are teleporting from wherever you are to that object, and that is why the name of the object should not be changed. If you change it, make sure you come back and you change the scripts in say W squad RP1 or platoon RP1 to correspond to the name that you have chosen, right? Now this gives you the destination of where you want to teleport to, a random direction, and then this is the actual teleportation that's taking place. So it gets the position and then puts you about 2 meters in and around the given object, right? You can change that to 10 meters to make it more realistic so that people don't collide with each other, but 2 meters is reasonable enough. The other thing that you can do, and this is aesthetic purposes, is this cut text to sleep. So it goes to black and then it fades out back to normal, and this takes about 2 seconds to do. And this is the blinking effect that you see when you teleport from one point to another, right? So let me show that to you again. So what I mean by that is, say in the game I want to teleport to my squad level rally point. I come here, move to squad rally point. Look at the blinking effect. This is what I mean by the cut text there. Fade to black, fade back to normal, and then back here. So this just gives a feeling of you not just disappearing and appearing somewhere else, but rather makes you move in a little smoother way. That's all. But the people looking at you obviously are going to see you vanish and then appear somewhere else. But just for yourself, it looks pretty decent. Now the retreat function, as you notice, was the 10-second black screen that you saw. So if I look at the script of the retreat function, it is basically the same teleport script that I wrote down one more time, except you're doing certain other things here. So you're first teleporting the player back to the building so he doesn't take any damage by staying outside in the world, but you take his controls away from him, so he or she cannot use any controls. His damage is set to 0. Now if you're using ACE, of course you can put down a different command, the ACE full heal function here. And then you have retreat timer. Now this one you can choose whatever time you want. I gave 10 seconds, but we actually use 60 seconds or so in our own actual games. And this is just a countdown. It just does a loop and displays the time at the bottom of the screen. Then you get back into consciousness, everything fades back, and you get back control of your input. Now this is where it's extremely important to make sure that if you use this command true, you must use this command false. If you don't, the player is left with no control over its character for the rest of the game. You don't want that. So using this gives a realistic feeling of I cannot control my character. Then giving this gives control back to the player. So make sure you put both the lines in. So that's the retreat.sqf. Now you have seen how the rally point system works. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And we'll go over it one by one, case by case basis, because It's a lot to take in. Uh, do not worry, I'll have all the files down there. You should be able to download them and run them yourself. Feel free to modify, feel free to use it in your own campaigns, in your own missions, and have fun. See you guys later.